as we blunder towards what seems like World War III over Taiwan. I'm just going to tell you what I think religion is for. I mean, you've heard me say many a time that religion is for the purpose of binding a society, which is the ancient form of social cohesion. But more than binding a society, I think it is also there to stop things from changing too quickly. As we know, religion is about family and rituals. There are family rituals, religious rituals, community rituals, national rituals, and obviously we know there's something wrong if we have to change our religion for one reason or another, whether we are invaded and forced to convert to another religion, or because we reject our current religion because it has failed. Obviously, it has failed, or we wouldn't reject it. So we think of, the Roman conquest of Britain. So presumably, the ancient Britons were happily worshipping their gods until the Romans invaded them, and presumably they were made to worship Roman deities, and they had to because the Romans conquered them. And after the Romans left, they were slowly Christianized when their monarchs accepted the bargain offered to them by the Christian missionaries which came from Rome. And then things carried on for centuries when the British were Catholic until Henry VIII had felt he had had enough of the Pope telling him what to do, particularly whom he could or couldn't marry. So all these systems have a shelf life. We know that the Protestant succession was not secure until 150 years of fighting the wars of the English Reformation. It's interesting, isn't it, how unstable things were in previous centuries, and we think that what we experience must be the worst ever forms of social turbulence. Even though I suppose some of us know that in theory, people were burnt alive for denying the divinity of Jesus, or saying some little thing wrong that maybe their monarch, who was either Catholic or Anglican, took against. So if we talk about cancel culture now, we really don't know the worst of it. Cancel culture has always existed, and was implemented with greater violence and ruthlessness than so far it has been now. Though, of course, it's annoying to be the victim of cancel culture. It's not that certain people shouldn't be lowered in status for going against the mainstream, because I think that is really the whole point of having a mainstream and having a fringe. And obviously, if you have a political orthodoxy, you ought to follow it, and the logic of following a political orthodoxy is to marginalize others. And that is all fair enough. Unless the political orthodoxy that we are being subject to is not the wrong, not the right kind of political orthodoxy, then that in fact it is well, just evil and wrong and degenerate and immoral. So how do we know? How do we know if we have the right kind of moral system? I'm sure everybody, well, people in every age and nation would think that their particular political orthodoxy is right for all time, be they communist, Nazi, fascist, socialist, or whatever. The answer is that we don't know. We only live through a part of human history that we happen to be alive in, and the rest, well, we won't know, will we? We might have the benefit of hindsight if we are interested in history and like to talk about these things and investigate them. So, is there a way of working out which moral system to choose from? So, moral systems are not just confined to religions, they would also include secular political ideologies such as communism, socialism, liberalism, conservatism, fascism. And other kinds of ideologies. Why do you think that these secular political ideologies don't last? Possibly in times past, there must have been a few experiments in people rejecting the idea of God. But for some reason, it doesn't seem to be recorded in history. There's always been some worship of some deity, as far as I know. But it has to be emphasized that even communism is a kind of moral system, and I certainly wouldn't deny that. So the difference between religions which believe in an afterlife and secular political ideologies which are about progressing towards a paradise on earth in this life, on this earth, have a different conception of things. What is the main difference? I would say it is their respective attitude towards sexual morality. Those who are strict about sexual morality tend to last longer, I think. I mean, we know the Jews are ridiculously strict on matters of sexual morality to the extent of forbidding masturbation, what they call the spilling of seed. While it is secular political ideologies that are lax and about, letting our hair down and everything all hang out. So we know what has happened after the sex revolution and the sex and drugs and rock and roll. We have got to where we are now, where we are obviously degenerate and we have the worst people in charge who are mad and silly and suffering from amnesia and dementia. And that would be, an excuse to give to them if we're going to overlook the fact that they may be actually mad or evil. So the purpose of religion, I think, is to stop change from happening quite so quickly. I know I read somewhere that the ancient Greeks were, the philosophers of ancient Greece were in fact arguing about whether the water in the river is the same water in the river from one day to the next. And we know that the ancient Romans said things like, "O tempora, O mores, O the times, O the manners," as I think most of us are saying now. So change is something that we don't quite know our attitude towards. I mean, obviously, we want change if it's change for the better, and we don't want change if it's change for the worse. And we don't really know what any change that we might propose and is in fact implemented will have good or bad results. We just don't know. But the little that we know is that we still want the best people to be in charge of the ship of state. That would settle us and make us feel safe again, like perhaps the little children we are. We just want the people in charge to run the country properly. We don't want to think that they might be mad or silly or actively evil and hate us and want to do away with us and don't care about us and hate us. And so religion is really to stop things from changing too quickly, which is deeply unsettling, and also to keep us good and safe, particularly our politicians, which we want to think of as being clever, good, responsible, wise people, and not incompetents who are corrupt or actively evil. So this is a purpose of religion, and even with Judaism, we know that these Jews had to change the form of their religion from temple Judaism to rabbinical Judaism, and we also know that most of them would rather not be subject to these very restrictive restrictions. So this is just something I wanted to say about how we are to choose the next moral system of our society. Can we make Islam revolve around white people? Well, I think it would have to be, because, if we're going to introduce it in the West. And this is really what I'm trying to do. I mean, I do say secular Quranism is for non-Muslims, and particularly for non-Muslim Western nations. And I was hoping that Muslims would support me in this, but what I get is obstruction and threats and curses, because they don't think I have the right to promote this moral system. But I don't see how they can stop me, or why they would. I suppose they just resent the fact that I'm doing all the things that they themselves are not doing, and they would hate for me to succeed where they have failed. And that is presumably why they are being so unhelpful. And, for people like Yo-Yo Mama, he's obviously a hopeless old soak who has given up on all hope and basically is like a tramp sitting on a bench waving his nearly empty drink bottle at passers-by and swearing at them. And this is how he chooses to pass his time. So the purpose of religion, I I will say before I finish this stream is for the purpose of making things stay the same for long enough for us to plan our lives, because it would be terrible if if our laws keep being changed by incompetent politicians every week, every hour, every day. So we want stability and laws to remain the same so we can plan our lives. And we don't want every generation to feel that the previous generation is an ideological enemy to their current political orthodoxy, which I think has been happening now for about maybe 2 or 3 generations, and it's obviously unsustainable and very, very unsettling. And in the end, it causes immorality, mental health issues, and people like Yayo Mama to drink and swear passers-by in his bench. So it's very sad if we take to drink, we are winos and we smell bad and are homeless and swear at people for no good reason, and it's just not a very good look for any society if most people are like yo mama. So the solution must be to have a rule book that is the best available guide to humanity, and this is what we should be discussing amongst ourselves. So I see Howard has popped up and said, there's a reason to organize religion. Okay, it's not a grammatical sentence. I don't know what to make of it. He's saying religion just evolved. I think religion, anything that is created, has a purpose. And I'm saying it's obvious that religion has a social purpose in that it gives us a belief system that gives us our identity and also our morality and our laws, and tells us how we should think of ourselves and how we should behave towards each other and how to elect our leaders, and all these things make up human identity and politics. And this is obviously very important, as we can see when we don't actually have this anymore, when nobody knows who the hell they are or knows what the hell they're supposed to do or be, or how to even change a system if they don't like it. So religion is actually very important, and if we have to choose a new religion, then we must choose the best available one. And I think I have the answer to that. So thank you all for listening, and I'm sure I'll speak to you again before too long.